The rain had not stopped for 3 days when Oliver Whitmore arrived in the forgotten village of Blackmere Hollow. The train had left him miles away, and the old carriage driver who brought him the rest of the journey refused to go beyond the iron gates on the hill. Everyone in the village spoke in whispers about the same place, Ravenhurst Castle, a towering ruin of black stone standing above the cliffs, hidden beneath storms and mist. The villagers avoided even looking at it after sunset. Children were warned never to speak its name at night. Yet Oliver had come willingly. He was a historian from London, obsessed with legends and ancient mysteries. Months earlier, he had discovered an old diary belonging to his late uncle, Professor Edward Whitmore, who had vanished 20 years ago while investigating Ravenhurst Castle. The final page contained only one sentence written shakily in red ink. "No one escapes the castle after midnight." Oliver refused to believe ghost stories. He believed in facts, hidden passages, and frightened imaginations. So when the carriage driver begged him not to enter the castle, Oliver merely smiled and stepped through the rusted gates alone. The path leading to Ravenhurst twisted through dead trees that looked clawed and burnt. Ravens circled overhead, their cries echoing across the valley. As Oliver climbed the hill, the castle slowly appeared through the fog, massive towers with broken windows, gargoyle statues blackened by age, and walls covered in ivy that looked like veins crawling across stone. The enormous front doors were strangely open. Inside, the air smelled of damp wood and decay. Dust covered the marble floors, but Oliver noticed something strange almost immediately. Fresh footprints. Someone else had entered recently. He called out, but only echoes answered him. His torchlight revealed endless corridors lined with portraits whose eyes seemed almost alive. Noblemen and women stared from cracked frames, their expressions twisted with fear rather than pride. Oliver wandered deeper into the castle until he found a grand hall with a fireplace still burning. Someone was there. A woman stood near the flames, dressed in a dark Victorian gown. Her pale skin almost glowed in the firelight. She looked no older than 25. "You should not have come here," she said quietly. Oliver froze. "Who are you?" "My name is Eleanor Ashcombe." Her voice carried sadness unlike anything he had ever heard. Oliver explained why he had come and showed her the diary. The moment she saw Edward Whitmore's name, her face turned pale. "He tried to leave," she whispered. "What happened to him?" Eleanor looked toward the shadows behind the hall. "The castle never let him go." Before Oliver could question her further, a deafening slam echoed through the castle. The front doors had shut on their own. Then came the sound, footsteps. Heavy, slow footsteps from somewhere above them. Eleanor's expression turned terrified. "It knows you're here now." The candles throughout the hall suddenly extinguished one by one, leaving only the fireplace flickering weakly. Oliver felt an icy coldness wrap around him. "What knows?" he demanded, but Eleanor had already begun running. Oliver followed her through narrow corridors and spiral staircases while the footsteps echoed closer and closer. As they ran, strange whispers filled the air. Voices emerged from the walls themselves. "Stay forever. Join us. You cannot escape." Oliver tried convincing himself it was only wind, but deep down, fear was growing inside him. Eleanor led him into a hidden library concealed behind a moving bookshelf. Thousands of ancient books lined the walls, untouched by dust. In the center stood a portrait of a man dressed in royal black robes. Lord Alastair Ravenscroft, the original owner of Ravenhurst Castle. Eleanor stared at the portrait with hatred. "He made a bargain with something evil over 200 years ago," she explained. "He wanted immortality, power, but the darkness he summoned cursed this castle forever." Oliver listened carefully as she told the horrifying truth. During the winter of 1812, Lord Ravenscroft invited dozens of wealthy guests to the castle for a masquerade ball. None of them were ever seen again. Villagers later discovered the castle abandoned, covered in blood, with every mirror shattered. Since that night, anyone who entered Ravenhurst after sunset vanished without trace. "And you?" Oliver asked nervously. Eleanor lowered her eyes. "I was one of them." The room fell silent. Oliver's heartbeat thundered in his chest. "That's impossible." "I entered the castle in 1894 with my family," she said softly. "We never escaped." Before Oliver could speak again, the library door slowly creaked open by itself. Standing outside was a tall figure cloaked entirely in darkness. No face, no eyes, only endless blackness beneath its hood. The temperature dropped instantly. Oliver could barely breathe. The figure stepped forward silently while shadows spread across the floor like living creatures. Eleanor grabbed Oliver's arm. "Do not let it touch you." They fled again through the castle while the creature followed slowly, never rushing, never speaking. Yet somehow it always remained close behind. As the hours passed, the castle itself seemed to change. Corridors twisted into impossible shapes. Doors vanished. Windows revealed not the outside world, but endless darkness. Oliver began hearing screams echoing faintly through the walls, hundreds of voices crying for help. Then he found them. Behind a locked iron door beneath the castle lay a chamber filled with portraits, hundreds of them. Men, women, children, all painted with terrifying realism. Oliver realized with horror that some portraits blinked. The people inside were alive. Their mouths moved silently, trapped within the paintings. One portrait caught his attention immediately. Professor Edward Whitmore. His uncle's terrified eyes stared directly at him. Suddenly Edward's painted hand slammed against the canvas from inside. "Run!" he screamed. At that exact moment the shadow creature appeared behind Oliver. Its hand touched his shoulder. Agony exploded through his body. Visions flooded his mind. Every victim the castle had claimed. Every soul trapped forever inside its walls. Oliver saw Lord Ravenscroft kneeling before a monstrous shadow hidden beneath the castle centuries ago. He saw guests dragged screaming into darkness during the masquerade ball. He saw Alina crying beside her dead family. And worst of all, he saw himself trapped there forever. Oliver broke free and stumbled backwards while Alina pulled him toward an underground tunnel. "There's one chance left," she said breathlessly. "The chapel." Deep beneath Ravenhurst stood an ancient chapel forgotten by time. Unlike the rest of the castle, this room remained untouched by darkness. Candles burned along the altar, although nobody had lit them in decades. Alina explained that the evil haunting Ravenhurst could not fully enter sacred ground. "But the castle will never allow us to leave willingly," she warned. The shadow creature appeared at the chapel entrance, unable to cross fully inside. It watched them silently while darkness twisted around its body. Oliver noticed an old iron dagger resting upon the altar beside a Latin inscription. "What does it say?" Alina translated quietly. "To destroy the master, one soul must remain." Oliver finally understood. The castle itself fed upon souls, and Lord Ravenscroft still existed somewhere within it, neither alive nor dead. Destroying him would break the curse, but someone had to stay behind to hold the darkness long enough for another person to escape. Alina smiled sadly. "I have been trapped here for over a century, Oliver. This is my chance to end it." Before he could stop her, she seized the dagger and walked toward the darkness. The shadow creature screamed for the first time, a sound so horrifying it shook the walls themselves. The entire castle began trembling violently. Alina drove the dagger into the creature's chest. Instantly every candle exploded into brilliant light. The castle roared like a living beast. Walls cracked, towers collapsed. The portraits throughout the chamber began screaming as trapped souls were finally released. Oliver watched as ghostly figures emerged around him, hundreds of spirits fading peacefully into light. Among them stood Edward Whitmore. He smiled at Oliver one final time before disappearing forever. Alina remained standing within the collapsing darkness, her body slowly turning transparent. "Go!" she cried. Oliver ran through falling corridors while the castle crumbled around him. Stone shattered behind him as he raced toward the main gates. The moment he crossed the bridge outside, a thunderous explosion echoed across the valley. Ravenhurst Castle collapsed into the cliffs below. Silence finally returned. When villagers later climbed the hill at sunrise, they found